Hey, welcome. This is The Process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is part one of my big block of research project that in the July here, this is my last big push for some preseason big research. I'll be trying to focus in on my uh, redrafts. I'll try to knock out about 50 in starting about August and into September. So I've got a lot of work to do. But I wanted to come in and continue my beta testing of this concept, counts over median, this weekly consistency tool. This was inspired by my partner at Science of Fantasy Football, Dennis Mitchelson. He has his weekly values, consistency ratings, and you can check all that out at our website. I tried to do it a little different, but I think there's a lot of synergy here. At least we're going to test that. I'm not sure we'll get to that this year, but we will try to do the research if we can. So philosophy of this and all my research really is the lessons that I'm going to talk to you about. You can listen kind of quick, right? You can hear them quick, but they're usually slow to be understood. I mean, that's nothing against you or me or whatever. It's to get deep into it, you have to really get immersed. And if you're not doing your own research, which I hope you will, part of what my mission is to inspire you to do your own research. You don't want to be beholden to these websites and these squawking heads on Twitter and whatever else. We don't know what they're doing and whatnot. So I'm trying to show you my process, and maybe you can get inspired to do that. So it's meant to inspire your research. Everything I do and talk about inspires me to do more investigation that I'm going to do anyway. So you're saying, well, you're making money. There's no money here. The only money I'm making is at the end of the season when I collect that fantasy trophy and that check. I don't play for fun. I play for money, so I want to take your money. So it's easy to be lazy because you can get this fast feedback where I understand it, I'm gone, right? You can kind of hit it and go and then on to something else. And, by the time you're ready for the draft, you're muddled up, and you probably remembering the last two or three things you read on Twitter, and hopefully they're good, whatever it is. So you can't show up drunk and one page kind of draft cheat notes. No, you can't do that. So it is not the most direct way. The direct way would be not to even spend a lot of time on the process. Just say, here, do this, do that. That sucks. Nobody wants that. Come on. It's going to take more than one season for you to really get deep in this if you're interested. And again, this is not for, the fly-by-nights, the folks that are just waking up about the end of August to try to do something. Okay, this is for the hardcore. If I hand-fed you, it wouldn't be the same as you having to work for it. So going through the data, listening, thinking about it, taking notes. A lot of people in Twitter and whatnot are giving you the fire without teaching you how to chop that wood. I want you to eventually chop that wood. You should not be dependent on me or anybody else. Okay? So go away from that. Move directly away. and be a scholar in fantasy football research. Now's your time. You've always wanted to do it. Now's your time to do it. You can see how I'm doing it. It's pretty hardcore. If you ever get a chance in a college or community college, something, a lot of they'll have courses. Take a introductory stats course. Take some psych courses on behavior and understanding your biases and these things. So there are books out there and videos to get you the basics on that. I would definitely recommend, doing that kind of material here. So what are counts over median? Median is half of the population, right? Not necessarily the average, but it's half. It's a weekly measure of a player's consistency over a season at a weekly level. Okay, so the concept, and this is what I'm beta testing, is that a player that is more consistent is better for your team than players who are not consistent, players who don't score a lot, or players who score a lot every once in a while, and they're probably on your bench, and then you get mad, and then, whatever. It just, So looking for that consistency, fantasy football is a weekly game. And so I calculate the number of weeks a player scored above the median for his position, wide receivers, tight ends, etc. And I scale that to the game, right? So if they got hurt, I don't want to penalize them for that. So I want to scale it per games played, and the data I generated was from 2014 to 22. I got the median for all the positions. And I give this example, player A, and I give 6 weeks. Let's just say this season 6 weeks. He scored week 1, 14, next week 2, 18, then 18, 6, 18, and 6 for a total of 80, 3.4 fantasy points per game. Player B, first week gets an 8, second week a 24. You're like, wow, I got something now. You put him off your bench and he gets you a 6. You put him back on, he's back to a 24. He gets you a 6 and then maybe a 13. He scores 81 total points and 13.5 fantasy points per game. So if you just look at total fantasy points, player B would be preferred. If you look at fantasy points per game, player B. My method would say actually player A is better because he had 4 weeks, 14, 18, 18 out of 6 for 67% a COM score. So he kept you in the hunt 4 out of 6 games. The other player twice, and you may not even had him on in your play slot. Okay, and that's COM scores 33. So he was half the weekly value if you measure by COM percent that player A is. So a big difference. You won't see that by total fantasy points or even fantasy points per game. You'll be tricked. So this is the whole point. Is this research worth it? Is this really real? There's some suggestions last year, some stuff happening. That's why I'm back to test some more. That's the whole point of beta testing here. Okay. So this is average of median fantasy points per game. And I look at the rank sector of quarterbacks for the years 2014, 2022. And you're saying, what is EOS? End of season. So quarterbacks end of the season who scored either at the 0 level or the 25 percentile level, basically they sucked, right? Just shows their number of fantasy points they scored you per week. Not too good, right? 1-2 points. That's not good. You don't want that quarterback. Next quarterbacks would be 26 to 50. So they're not quite above average. They're getting close. What are they giving you? Somewhere between 0 and 8 points. A lot of variation there. What about those quarterback 2s, maybe 3s? 51 to 75. Notice 2014 they were at 13. Last year they were at 9. So there was a really interesting shift in the last 3 years. Quarterbacks below the top 25% or suck. So it's been kind of skewing towards the top 25%, which is the 76 to 100 percentile. And those guys in the last 3 years are bringing you about 19 fantasy points per game. So there's been an uptick in that. So that's kind of been a trend happening. And you can see when I plot this, the top here, and probably the colors are wacky here. I should change that. I should change that color because that's a sucky color there. Yeah. Okay. Now, much better. This is the top quarterbacks, top 25% at the end of the season. Over 14 to 22, you can see there's been an uptick, a trend line going up. The next quarterback down, the 2s and 3s have been declining, as well as the other ones. So there's been a big, look at the difference last 3 years, especially last year. There's been a big difference in quarterbacks bringing home the bacon here, fantasy points per game. So that is forcing a lot of people to take quarterbacks earlier. This late quarterback concept, boy, you got to really be cautious if you're doing that. Okay. In best ball, you can probably get away with it. But in redraft, it's sure looking hard like you need a good quarterback there. Doesn't mean you have to have Mahomes as your number one, as your top. But you better have somebody who's bringing home some nice scores, or I think you're going to be at the bottom of the barrel here. So let's look at running backs here. Same graph showing the points that are gotten. And here is the best running backs at the end of the season, the top 25%, bringing home 12, 13 points per game. So that's kind of an expectation. Here is, I don't know why I did this color here. It's not good, is it? No. Let's do that. Did I do that? Now let's try that. I don't know why. Yeah, much better. Much better. Much better. Okay. So hasn't been, kind of been an upward trend, and we're kind of at, nothing's really happened since 2018. So that hasn't really increased any from the value of the RBs there. Okay, so that's it. Quarterbacks, big difference. Running backs, not so much. So running backs are running backs, right? Tight ends. Here are the different levels. The top 25, think about it, they're giving you 8 to 9 points. Okay? That's what you can expect. People say, big quarterback, big tight ends, 8 to 9. That's not a lot there. So think about running backs getting you 13, 12, tight ends getting you 8. So you can see right away that you better have a nice running back. And this idea of you better have an elite tight end or, basically forget it. People are aware of this data, and that is giving you something to consider Got to change this again. Why do I do that? By the way, there's polynomial trend lines here. Okay. The top tight ends maybe gone down a little bit, but nothing really dramatic. They've stayed like they've stayed, and they are certainly different than the next the next 25% tight end. So it's all about the top 25% tight end as far as points. Wide receivers, what are they doing for you? I like running backs, 13, 12. So quarterbacks, let's go back. Quarterbacks giving you 20. Running backs giving you 12. Tight ends giving you 8. 13 for wide receivers. So 20, 12, 8, 13. So that just shows you the take-home value of these positions in the top sector. So you just need to be aware of that. In other words, if you think, unless it's a rare tight end, they are not going to deliver what a top wide receiver, running back are, with some exceptions. And you know, we're talking Kelsey. Okay, can't hide that. So that is, let's see, what are we doing here? Yeah, so another way to look at this data, I just lined it up. This is the top 25%, and I show the fantasy points here just for y'all. So I've showed you this data. It's just another way to look at it. Okay, so just kind of see right there. So if you have a league with one quarterback, two wide receivers, two running backs, and a tight end, so weekly you're thinking 20, say 13, was it 20? 26, 46, 56, 66, 72, 80, 90 points, somewhere in there. And people have flex, so 103 or something. So you can just kind of use this and kind of get a feel for the predicted points, kind of give you a landmark here. And if you look percentile-wise at the value of the quarterback, RB, tight end, and wide receiver in the total here. So I just, let's just say we played fantasy football and had one each. Quarterback would be worth 32% of the value. Running backs, 23, tight end, 18, wide receivers, 26. In 2014, 34. So notice 2% increase. Look at the last 3 years on quarterbacks. When I said things have gone up, that's going to put a hard bind on that late quarterback play here. Not saying you can't do it, but it's just, this makes it harder here. And you can see the running backs and the wide receivers. And notice the tight ends have really declined as well. So you're upping the quarterbacks, you're decreasing the tight ends. You're kind of running in place on the RB and the wide receivers. So another way to look at it is this value here. Just looking at the value and getting the trend lines here. Tight ends were better percent-wise than running backs, but now they're about tied. And then here is the fantasy points per game here. This is this is the tight end in blue. This is the I guess green is what wide receivers were ahead of running backs. So there was this 0 RB worked well, 15, 16, 17, 16. Notice that the running backs came back 17-18, and now we're tied. So this idea of zero running backs, the only way to do it, yeah, if you draft into whatever the trend's going to be this year, which this data would suggest is going to be kind of this same trend, they're going to hold together. It's going to be even harder to make a zero RB pay here. Not saying you can't do it. I've done it myself. Okay, it's just harder to do it versus this year here. So I think people were thinking zero RB based on this kind of world, and now we have this world. So the world has changed. Okay, and here's quarterbacks. Quarterbacks have increased last years. Okay, and that's putting a bind on things as well. And let's see, we got 21 minutes here. Let's go. So this is another way to look at 17-19 versus the last 3 years. And I put some arrows, quarterbacks up, running backs down a little bit, about 1%, quarterbacks up about 1%, if you kind of aggregate the data there. So it's been a little decline in running backs and an increase in quarterbacks there. This just shows you the different slices, the top ones, the percentile, and this is the number of counts over median per game percentage. So in quarterbacks, the average is about 50%. So half the time, the top 25% quarterbacks are bringing in above that fantasy points per game weekly number. Running backs about 48, tight ends about 49, and wide receivers 48.8. You're saying, well, why are they all close to 50? Because I'm using median. Okay, this just confirms that my median data is picking up what you would predict it would pick up. This just shows the median here for the different levels. And notice, like I said, the quarterback 2s and 3s have really declined here. Look at this. Something has really happened. And the quarterback one types have been really nice. Running backs, about pretty good. I mean, it's a pretty good drop here. Look at the difference, okay, between that. Here's tight ends, even more difference, and wide receivers. So it's clear having the top wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, top 25% is something you should really shoot for here. And you can look at this data. Maybe I'll copy these slides and put it up on this article here. Okay, starting with part 2, quarterbacks with 2023 views. So I'm going to give you a little bit of some data on quarterbacks next time, next lesson. Okay, thanks for listening. We're having fun. Woo woo.